in on this Wednesday night hump live cast that we do every Wednesday night during the hump day of the week. We enjoy doing this live stream and
Waarom Dirk geen klantenkaart heeft?
whoops.
Bij ons krijgt iedereen hetzelfde voordeel. Zonder klanten.
Sorry, a little Dutch there. Didn't forgot to turn my sound off. Um, we're always appreciative of you taking your time to tune in. Time is a very valuable thing, and spending a little bit of yours with me is greatly, greatly appreciated. And thank you so much for doing so. Um, yeah, now that I got this adjusted and the sound right. Wow, that's great. Interesting. Um, I would like to open up tonight by talking about some things that have happened here at Upstairs to Write Music. Uh, Things that go on during the week. I like to share as they come up during live streams. Ben, hey, how you doing? Welcome. Um, well, first thing, Tall Thin Kev was kind enough to offer me one of his pedals, an older 80s Columbus chorus pedal. It's an analog pedal. I'm always interested in 80s, 90s analog pedals. And he sent it to me, but it took forever and a day to get here. It took weeks to get here from the UK, by the way. And then when it did arrive, they hit it with a VAT. But that's okay. I have to say that in my Fender Champion 40, it has a built-in chorus. And I don't use it so much for guitar that way. I actually used to use a chorus pedal on drum machines and things like that. I do use it on a guitar, sparingly and in a very interesting way. But it is an interesting thing to have arrived. Again, I mean 80s Columbus chorus pedal. I put it through its paces with that 1976 Les Paul system, Greco, and it sounded pretty good. It's kind of cool to have a separate, distinct chorus. When I do my recording, if I need chorus, I usually do it to dry signal. I usually run a wet and a dry signal, and I apply it later on using onboard effects in my DW. So to have an actual chorus pedal, of course, the Boss makes the most famous chorus pedal ever. But this one's not bad, you know. In truth and actuality, the this Columbus pedal was kind of a budget pedal at the time. It was one of those multi-brand pedals. I don't have an example here, but a pedal that comes with a lot of names, a lot of different manufacturers, but it's basically the same circuit. And noisy, not so bad with noise. Those 80s and 90s analog pedals can be a little bit noisy, but it seems to be okay on my board. And it's a good thing that it came in. So I might do something with that to, and with something in the future. I just wanted it because, as you know, I have a pedal problem. I'm a bit of a pedal freak. And if somebody offers me one and I look it up and it's interesting, and this one is certainly interesting because not a lot of them out there. A few of them out. You can get them for about 70 euros. But it's really, you know, I think a sleeper. I think it's a sleeper. Sort of, you know, I'm not talking bad monkey kind of thing, but I am saying that it's a decent chorus pedal, you know, for what it does. You can find one at the right price and you can avoid the VAT. But that's all right. Next thing up is, as you know, one of my businesses is to import and sell vintage Japanese guitars. And I got a couple of nice ones that I bought today. Michael Watson in the house. Happy Halloween. Hey, how you doing? Excuse me, guys. My cat just opened the door. Okay, sorry about that. Frederick Rogers, hey, how you doing? Welcome, guys. Thank you so much for showing up. And to everybody that's in the live stream right now, thank you so much for tuning in and sticking around. Maddie Two Hats, hey, long time no see. How you doing? Long time no see, sir. Welcome, welcome. The gang's all here tonight. But I picked up a couple of strats. I picked up a 70s, late 70s, and a 1980s strats. Alex, Mr. McWilliams in the house. Hey there. How you doing? How you doing? I'm so happy that you were able to tune in. But I got a couple of nice strats. I got a Greco SC 500 Spacey Sounds from 1980 in natural. As you know, I kind of like natural color strats. All original, really, 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 really nice strat. And I was very pleased to get that. But the other strat that I got was actually my first Tokai. I've been buying a lot of Grecos, strats, and Les Pauls, as you guys know, and I've shared them. If you haven't seen that, just look at the regular content on my channel, and you can pick those up. But I got a Tokai, and it's an ST50. Now, the Tokai ST50s, there's a lot of them out there. When they, not a lot, but they're really a representation of about 60% of Tokai's production at that time, in terms of models that they were putting out. So you can find them out there. But I found a pretty nice one. It's a beauty in Sunburst. And it's got a few dings in it, but they're acceptable dings. Strats, I'll take a little bit more dings in for some reason. That's look a lot cooler when they have a few knocks in them, actually. Les Pauls, on the other hand, I like those as pristine as possible. It's weird. But the ST50 is the model that really got CBS's attention at that time. And they came calling, and this was a guitar that was flawlessly executed to replicate a post-CBS, in the case of the ST50, but still a 60s Strat, and very well known for that. Stop talking just for talking. You know Russian. Come on, my friend. No, I don't know Russian, sorry. But talking for the sake of talking is kind of the point of all this. So I'm happy to get those in. I'm very happy to get those in. And as soon as they hit here, I will share those with you. Hey, 3-Chord Dave in the house. Hey, Dave, how you doing, sir? Welcome to the live stream. Always glad to have you here. Yeah, as soon as hit the shores here, I will share those with you, but I'm really super stoked to get those. And we'll share those with you, of course, when they become available. Well, this is a Halloween Eve special tonight. And we're going to take a deep dive into something that I think is actually the scariest thing happening in the guitar world today. And no, I'm not talking about haunted amps or cursed pedals or anything like that, although later on I'm going to tell you a story about a cursed guitar that I heard. We're talking about the spine-chilling, bank-breaking prices of guitars these days. And one of the things really why I bring up these Tokais and Grecos and things like that is to show you that even in this market with these really, really high prices, there are some guitars of fantastic quality out there on the secondhand market. But who needs a horror movie when you just look at the price tag of a new Fender or a new Les Paul? I mean, let's be honest. Or any Gibson for that matter. It'll make anybody scream. Yeah, the Halloween metaphor is going to go throughout tonight's screen, just so you guys are aware of that. So we're just going to explore a little bit tonight about how guitar prices became the real horror story that it's become, whether it's big brands, vintage collectibles, or even the once affordable budget options that are starting to harm wallets. So yeah, there are a lot. Uh, I'd say again, things out there that can be found on the secondary market that are certainly worth your attention, certainly worth you taking a look at. But even those are starting to creep up in price. I'm starting to notice. So let's set a stage a little bit here. Back in the day, you could walk in the store. I remember, again, growing up in Los Angeles, I had the option of some of the finest, guitar shops in the States. And I could find a decent guitar, um, a Les Paul or a Strat, and still walk out without feeling like I just sold my soul. But something has changed these days. My cat is over here destroying something. So if you hear noise in the background, no, the room is not haunted. Although for a minute I was a little scared there. See, I told you I could carry the Halloween metaphor throughout the entire thing, even involving my cat. So it has changed, and you now get this feeling every time you look at a guitar or you're really super interested in buying a guitar. You these days to be a little bit more, shall I say, shy about it, wallet shy about it. Now, really, across the board, a lot of the USA manufacturers were really offering guitars at reasonable prices. And it just seems to me that within the last, honestly, probably more, but my gut tells me in the last 5 years. I know that sounds like a short period of time, but I could still see myself, or let's go back to 2019. That was the last time I was in Los Angeles. And I yeah, you know what? You've got to go. Excuse me, guys. All right, come on, go. All right, sorry again. My kitten is just being a kitten. I could walk into a shop in LA when I would visit there and get a lot of great deals on guitars. That, quite frankly, these days, some of those guitars, especially the Les Paul SG, the regular models and the specials, those have doubled, in some cases tripled in price from what you can get it for. You can get a Les Paul SG, just your standard one in black or red or whatever that is, whatever that color is called, for about $799. That's the last time you actually, if you look at the footage on this channel, if you go back and take a look at my LA trip, you can see where I show the price tags. I always try to show the price tags in these videos just as a marker, not just to show, wow, this is this much, but really as a marker to say, hey, at this point in time, that's how much you could get this for. And I'm glad that I do that because, I've in the last 5 years, I've really gotten a distinct feeling that we have really just skyrocketed, just, taken off in terms of the inflation on these instruments, new and used, by the way. So some brands like Fender American Pro Series, I know I keep hacking on the American Pro Series, but when I get that Tokai SD50 in and show you guys that one, you'll see why I laugh. It's just a rehashing of the same designs. We've covered this before. But the premium on those keeps going up and up. A rehash of basically the same thing, but the premium keeps going up and up. I've got a lot of bots in the chat tonight, guys, so I'm going to answer to everyone. I will answer the ones that look like they're legit. This is a guitar channel. Guitar chat, not politics. You Johnny Guitar 57. Bless you for that one. That is correct. Sean Brooks says there's a guitar for everyone. Yeah, and there is. You just have to look hard enough. So, these premiums that get charged on these rehashings of these old models, same old models, um, it's really getting to the point where it's becoming comical. It's becoming extremely obvious that that's what's happening. And a lot of people are backing off of that. Take a look, just for fun, when you have a moment. Go to Reverb and type in Fender Stratocaster and see how many listings that come up for that. And ask yourself, what's up with that? It is a very high number. Now, let's get really creepy and talk vintage market. Something that I deal in a great deal, Japanese market. I'm becoming actually quite an expert in it. Sure, we all love a good classic, but have you seen what people are charging for these old guitars? Now, in this case, I'm really talking about the American Fenders, the American Les Pauls. When I went to the Vintage Guitar Show last September here past, again, from the year previous and looking at the prices and looking at where they're at now, again, they have gone up, not significantly, but enough so that, again, the creep is kind of obvious there, especially if you're in the know, if something you're around all the time. And honestly speaking, I just wonder again, and this is sort of a deviation, that there's a certain generation of guys who can afford those guitars. What is the market like that going to be like? Because there are a lot of them out there. There's not a shortage of 50s and 60s Les Pauls and Strats and 70s. They produced a lot of them. They're out there. So it's not the rarity that they make it out to be. Again, scarcity is one of the reasons the 59 is what it is, because they only made, I understand, maybe I'm way off, but something in the neighborhood of 1,400. It's the only guitar that there's like 1,400 of them out there, and there's 100,000 for sale. And so there's that. Mr. Sean Brooks says Fender guitars are reasonably priced, but their amps are overpriced. Yeah, what is that came out with that recent Blues Breaker that just was a disappointment for everybody, for a lot of, again, or one of those amps. I agree. Fender, in terms of their amps, especially with a lot of the modeling that they're using in them, which doesn't really, it may emulate the sound of what it's trying to capture, a bygone era amp, but it's not really. It's that old song, ain't nothing like the real thing, baby. So I agree with that somewhat. Vintage guitars are like baseball cards, comic books. Again, I agree with that. As boomers age out of the market, the price will continue to drop. And that's where I was alluding to with that sort of deviation there. I guess maybe not so much. That once a certain generation dies off, that first have an interest, have the nostalgic tie, and we talked about nostalgia in the last live stream, have that kind of nostalgic tie into that kind of instrument, because, like my nephew here generation, I don't know if that's something, Alex, you can pipe in if you want to, if a vintage guitar from the 50s or 60s is really something that's interesting to you, and especially at the prices that they're asking for. They're astronomical. Alex McWilliams, every new guitar probably just wants a Strat or a Tele, ha ha ha. Then we mature with Les Paul. Well, there seems to be, Alex, actually a progression. I started out on Telecasters, oddly enough. And then I wanted to get a heavier sound, so I progressed into Les Pauls. So there is a progression there, I have to say. Some guys like Eric Clapton went from a Tele to a 35 to a Les Paul to a Strat. So there are progressions amongst musicians that do occur. It just really depends upon what music you're trying to reach for. Um, so there's that. Johnny Guitar 57, I saw an amazing video on YouTube. A Fender Player 2, 700, up against a Fender American Ultra Vintage for 2300. And wow, much of a difference other than a slightly different tone. Again, that comes down to pickups. You can go to a custom winder. There's a guy that I use in Croatia, Q Pickups. He'll custom wind you a set of Fender for whatever year Fender Strat or Tele or whatever you want for whatever year sounds you want. Literally specializes. Sorry, in Fender Strat pickups, and so at that point, I think your wallet and your common sense will tell you what the best move is. Johnny Guitar 57 again. I just got a Player 2, real nice, only 700 and well worth it. It was wood fretboard they added. Yeah, nice, man. You know, again, like I said, there are deals to be had. You just know where to look. But the explosive price inflation for vintage models, especially for brands like Gibson and Fender, again, as somebody as Johnny Guitar was pointing out, are like baseball cards. You know, full slab fretboard also. Yeah, I've got early 2000, two early 2000 Squire Strats. One is going to Alex here, a white one and a sunburst one, and both of those have full slab rosewood necks on them. So again, there's things out there to be had. Again, things like that you pay a premium for now if you want to get that on an American model. Whereas if you reach back in time to these Tokais, to the Grecos, to the early Squires, things like that, they have these features that are now being charged premium on the American models of these. And a 59 Les Paul, depending upon the condition, can cost as much as a house. Okay? In certain parts of the world. Well, $500,000, that'll buy you a nice place somewhere, I'm sure. Now, that's not just terrifying, it's insane, and it's driving up the price of other guitars, even those with a less vintage appeal. You know, as they say, when the tide goes up, all boats rise. And this is certainly a condition that has beset the vintage market. And I just really wonder. I think a lot of guys put a lot of money in some stuff that coming up here in the coming decade or so is not going to yield what they thought. Of course, everything that Joe Bonamassa has, believe me, that'll sell because it has a provenance of not only being but also being owned by Joe Bonamassa. And he did say someday he is going to let his collection go. Interestingly enough. But still, there's a lot of cats out there who are not Joe Bonamassa. Believe me, they are going to find themselves holding the bag. So maybe you're thinking, forget the high-end stuff, I'll just get some budget-friendly guitar. But here's the kicker, budget guitars are creeping up in price too, and sometimes they're not even worth it in some cases. You know, there's some guys out there who, hey, I got this $200 whatever. You know, and it'll be a Strat style guitar, for example. And they'll say how great it is, but when it really comes down to the pickups and to the way it was put together, for that same $200, you could find yourself, if you look around hard enough, a pretty good quality condition early Squire, the Taiwanese made ones, you know, and you would again be finding yourself in a far better situation than some of these budget guitars that, by the way, their prices are exorbitant, I think. They're, you know, I'm not talking about Harley Benton's buying. Harley Benton's, for some reason, they are slowly becoming the new Epiphone. Well, we'll talk about that another day. So the rising cost of budget brands that once offered affordable options like Epiphone, although it has been pointed out that Epiphone still has their $700 or €700 Les Pauls available that you can get, but they will phase that out, trust me. And also, the quality price ratio is not what it used to be. Again, I use that example of any modern produced budget Strat style guitar against early 2000s Squire, for example. You know, the quality price ratio there is just not there with the newer ones because they're not using rosewood, trust me, on a lot of cases. And when they do, it's very poor quality. Again, just like everything else, there are grades to things. You can go out and buy yourself some cheap rosewood, a little bit better one, a higher quality one. And the maple, by the way, on the 2000 Squires, that was old reclaimed maple that they were using in the factory. So you're getting some really nice maple, a nice slab, rosewood on top of that. And, you know, that's something that you're not going to find in the current budget guitar offerings. So again, just looking at it from the quality price ratio, it's just not what it used to be. Brands like Epiphone used to be the go-to for those who couldn't draw big butts, big bucks, big butts. That was not a Freudian slip. Who don't want to drop big bucks on Gibson? But even Epiphones are hitting over 1,000 on certain models. Budget friendly? Not so much. Not so much, guys. Let's catch up here. Alex says he's in love with his 2020 Squire Telecaster. Again, an excellent instrument. Johnny, I'm sorry, Sean, Epiphones don't hold their value, Sean Brooks says. It's not worth sinking $1,600 into a new Epiphone just to buy a used Gibson at that price. I agree. We've talked about that before, about, again, holding value. You know, once you buy a second-hand Epiphone, for example, you've already baked out the margin on that. So if you buy an Epiphone, it would be better to buy it in the second-hand market because you're going to get it at a more reasonable price. But if you're brand new, I'm going to tell you, but I'm here to tell you that seriously, you will take a hit on it walking out the door, and I don't care what it is, what Epiphone it is. It could be that inspired by Gibson black custom that they came out. Absolutely beautiful guitar, but trust me, your resale on that is not going to be great. Not going to be great at all. Right, like Sire, Larry Carlton guitars, they give everything as far as features. You get a real bone nut, not plastic. But that is getting into that mid-rangey. You know, you're talking about the 500, 600, €700 range, at least for those guitars over here. But again, you're getting a good quality to value ratio there with those. So I agree with that. Alex says, as a 19-year-old, okay, vintage guitars are super cool. Okay. I totally love a 50s, 60s guitar. But you're right, I don't think younger people care as much. For sure, depends upon the person and their experience level. Okay, I appreciate that, Alex. Thank you. It's actually so cool to have my nephew here. I appreciate you chiming in with it. It's interesting to get that opinion. Yeah, of course it's going to depend, but it's not going to be as many people. I just don't feel it's going to be as many cats that are going to be interested. And I think that market is going to come down a bit. KRP, bought my last guitar in 2015. Don't regret it one bit. These things will last with care and maintenance. Yeah, you really only need one, maybe two guitars. You need a bass guitar and whatever electric, and I suppose an acoustic. So three. I'll say that's pretty much will cover your bases. And if you don't play bass, then you can pick up another spare, add another electric to that one, but something different from the other one. So I agree with that. I could really argue with that. I found my dream guitar after is my 1976 Grow that I got in. You notice everything else has moved on and that one's still around. I'm even making it prettier. I'm dressing it up really because I'm really in love with that guitar. I'd like to try to hold on to it somehow. KRB, quality period, can't mess with entry level guitar. Yeah, again, Mike, can you get rid of those political people, please? No, I'm sorry. I got to get myself a moderator here. That's what I need. Epiphone was never meant. Google's Pasino says. Goggles Pasino says. Epiphone was never meant to be a budget brand in the first place. Well, when they first started out in the 60s, if you recall, the Beatles played Epiphone guitars, Casino, and a few others. And no, they were not meant to be. They kind of got that moniker when Gibson decided to produce them in Japan in the early 80s. And they weren't into New Orleans, ruined them in 1976. That ended with J.C. Curley when he restored Epiphone back to premium band. Yeah, getting it back to the American-made ones again, nothing back to that. I agree. Alex says, good to hear you talk. Say hi to her from me. I'll have to work. All right, you take care. Have a good one. Thank you for showing up. Mike, I'm guessing by that tonight you're cheering against your hometown Dodgers and rooting for the Yankees. No, what you're seeing is not wanting to put a comb in my hair and do my hair for the live stream and just grabbing it. It was a quinky dink there. Yeah. I thought about that actually, because I'm not really a sports guy. I've said that before. But rooting in this particular thing, I do have to say, of course, I have a certain sentimentality towards my hometown team, the Dodgers. So that is true. I do have a little bit of catching when it comes to sports. Johnny Guitar 57, I think Fender did the right thing with the player, dropping the price, not increasing. Yeah, not only that. Well, I think the smartest thing they did was come out with the Squire Vintage, was that Classic Vibe series, and that proved out in the sales of those. That was a run for them, and I think one of the smartest things they did. Goggles says, Epiphone does hold value. I bought a 2019 Epiphone exclusive deluxe limited run SG Pro. That's a whole mouthful there, man. Johnny Guitar 57, I think you did the right thing, keeping the player 2 at a reasonable price. They actually lowered it, not like it fully. Yeah, we read that. Yeah. So there's that, guys. Let's talk about the most haunted part of the whole scene, the online guitar marketplace. I need to drink. By the way, at this halfway point, I want to thank everybody for taking the time to tune into the live stream. Don't forget to hit the like button. If you like what you see and you like this channel, please subscribe. I'm trying to reach a subscription goal this year, and I'm halfway there. But you know what? Halfway is better than nowhere. So if you haven't subscribed yet, guys, do that. I do appreciate it. All right. The guitar marketplace out there, like eBay and Reverb, where really you had a lot of what I call them is that new wave of cats who bought guitars because they got money during COVID. They didn't really need it for anything else, so they just blew it on guitars. Now they're sitting around with a room full of guitars and they're saying to themselves, hey, you know what, I gotta get these. I'm going to put it up for sale, and having no experience in that market at all, of course they're going to list it for what they sold it for. And we've talked about how well that worked out. As predicted, it did not. So A guitar listed at a fair price, really kind of good luck these days. More often, you'll find people asking double what it's worth with descriptions that read like horror stories themselves. Rare Vintage Mojo is one of my favorites. What this said actually too is this is an old guitar that needs work, and now it's double the price. So that um, you know, really the secondary market got an influx of new people, and they didn't quite understand how the secondary market. Also, you had cats like Etsy, the owners of Reverb, who changed Reverb into something that it was not really supposed to be. The fees on Reverb itself started to go up considerably. When you factor in the cost of shipping and things like that, it really started to become kind of a nightmare on Elm Street, well, any street. And I think that a lot of people who used to, dwell in those spaces from the past saw those changes and were turned off and they went away. And then what are you left with? A very spooky place indeed to do business. I really, I cut off my dealings on Reverb. Now I brought something back because I think it's worth dipping my toe in with this product. You can find it on my Reverb site, Mike's Guitar Attic. But really, the fees and things like that, sometimes it's just really not worth dealing with. Just really not worth it. And for a guy like me, who started out on like, you know, the LA, like a weekly. I used to look for guitars in the LA Weekly because they used to list instruments there because a lot of the broke musicians in LA back in the 80s and the early 90s were putting ads in the LA Weekly. And, the Recycler. The Recycler was a big place that the Recycler in LA was the big, if you go and you buy a newsstand, it was like, $2 or something like that. Came out every week, and it was the listings of people selling gear. And that was a real marketplace. That was a real marketplace. Reverb kind of had that feeling in the beginning, but, Reverbs are crazy, Johnny says. I sold some items recently, they're crazy. Randolph Limke says, you're handsome. Well, thank you, Randolph. eBay is better. Well, let us move on. Some guys, look for guitars from lesser known brands that don't compromise on quality. I wouldn't say that Greco and Tokai are lesser known brands. However, I don't think that anybody out there who doesn't know quality and comes across one of these will suddenly get a myth, like a spiritual, event happen where they understand quality. And I think that though not popular in the sense of a Fender or a Gibson, it would be wise to take a look at these lesser known brands like Tokai and Greco that don't compromise on quality and will make you extremely happy. Matty Two Hats. This chat has become a dumpster fire tonight. Keep it guitar related or leave you all. Thank you, Matt. Yeah, a lot of bots too. There was a company or some person a couple of weeks back that reached out to me and said, hey, I'm looking at the metadata on your channel and, you got all these videos but you could be doing more, and let me hire my company to help you do that. And I said no, I said no, man, I'm good, and I blocked them. Kept, I said I'm good, and then they write me back, and I just tossed and blocked them. Then all of a sudden I started getting these bots, so I'm pretty sure I know where it comes from. um, I had to figure out how to do a moderator on this thing. I'm starting to think. I never thought I would get to that point. I guess that's a good thing. It beats the days when there was nothing but crickets. But yeah, we'll have to talk about that later at a point. Randolph Lemke, you actually read what people send. You can delete Mike on your end. Yeah, I could, but some of these are actually funny to me. Like this one, 4Q, when did you tell your parents about you being gay? That's actually funny. So some of them actually crack me up. Um, Scott Bogfoot, hey sir, how you doing? Welcome, welcome. Cheers to you from sunny Amsterdam. I'm sure it's not as sunny as Newfoundland is. Actually, the weather all over the planet is weird. I heard from my agent in Japan today that he's wearing short sleeves in Osaka in friggin' October, end of October. That is amazing, unheard of. Greetings to you. Well, you don't look like Obama. No. I told you, the Japanese casting directors, they always wanted me to play Tiger Woods. I guess with this hat. So I would go in with one of these kind of hats and audition for these Tiger Wood commercials in Japan. I'm not kidding, guys. That's true story. Cold and snow here. Oh, I hope we get snow here this year. You know, back in the early 2000s when I was here on holidays in the winter, there'd be snow on the ground, pretty good. The first year that I lived here, and I'm going into the year next year. The first year that I lived here, it snowed. Since then, we haven't had a drop. I'd really like to get a white Christmas this year. That would be great. Please, not tired. Yeah. Jesus loves you all. He saved me from depression, all sorts of stuff, and he saved you all too. Loves you very much. I will not reject that message. That is always a welcome message here. Welcome to the chat. Shop local and support smaller stores that may have hymns without the scary markup. There are still small guitar shops out there. There are shops out there that aren't necessarily guitar shops, but they may have a few. And you may want to take the time to take a look at that. And you may want to invest in looking at whatever the modern equivalents are of, like I was saying, the recycler. They're out there. I'm not talking about eBay. It's not the same thing at all. But there are, online, every country, places, marketplaces. I know it because I use one. It's a lot. A lot of the guitars I buy is on an online marketplace. It's not, they sell everything. I go to the guitar section and I look through there, and I always find some interesting deals because they're private sellers. They haven't gone to a shop, so it doesn't have the shop markup on them. And I can usually try to negotiate with them, which the shops generally don't do too much in Japan. The price is the price. So think of ways that you can find instruments. Think of ways that you can find them. And I think it's getting scary out there. I think it's getting more and more frightening. However direction you go in terms of buying an instrument these days. I still don't know how they determined that on the pedal that I got from the UK from Toth and Kev. The VATs have gone up a bit. So if you're in a VAT country, you, you may want to think about taking a vacation with an empty guitar case that somehow got full on the way back. And no, seriously, you might, think of different ways of trying to get around that, but that's a killer too. That's a consider. I've had a lot of deals that I was trying to close, but the VAT at the end, to the UK, guys in the UK, Colin, a good friend that got Guitar Arista once, was interested in something, but we just decided that that didn't make sense. I try to fly over to UK with guitars to drop them off when I can, but it is not a trip that I enjoy making. Even though it's a day trip, go in the morning, come back in the evening. But there are a lot of stuff out there that's just you're trying to avoid. You're trying to get over. And believe it or not, with the VATs and everything, it is cheaper to fly there, depending upon the guitar, to fly there and sell it to the UK, for example, than to actually ship it. So a lot of stuff out there. But like I said, I'm not doing that. I'll do it, if it's really something special and if it works out for me and my schedule. But that's are the real stake in the heart of my vampire. See, I told you I keep the Halloween metaphor going throughout. It wouldn't be an annual Halloween Eve or in some cases Halloween live stream if I didn't tell you guys a scary story from when I was out on the road. As you know, I spent over almost 2 decades living in Japan, and for the first decade and a good part of the second one, I was performing in clubs up and down from Tokyo to Nagoya to Fukuoka, places like that. And met a lot of musicians from the States. A lot of these guys were from New York, black musicians, because we were playing, R&B music primarily. I started out playing keyboards and sometimes filling in on guitar, rhythm guitar. So I was playing, so at one point I had a guitar strapped on and I was playing keyboards at the same time, believe it or not. But a lot of these musicians came from, and they were cats that being a West Coast guy, I never really encountered so many, Georgia, and New York cats from that part of the States, musicians before. And the funny thing is that we were all in Japan. Well, we weren't in the States. But, there was the accommodations sometimes, especially in Nagoya, were not so great. The apartment that I had to stay in Nagoya was really frui or old. And in the wintertime, cold as crap. And you had these little cheap space heaters, and it didn't quite cut it. And we, on our off days, especially it was snowing outside, because when it snowed in Nagoya in the wintertime, oh boy, man, you did not want to go out. We would play cards. We just read, and even during the between sets. So the sets where you would play a set, and then you'd have 45 off. You play a set and 45 off. And at 45 minutes, sometimes we would sit in the back in the musician's room and we would play cards. And guys would tell stories. Guys would tell all kinds of stories. And I'm going to tell you one tonight. Andreas Sosa, hey buddy, how you doing? Benny Larson, evening, Mike, Ben Scott. I'm not sure if I missed anyone. I see the Russian bots are everywhere these days. Russian bots. Well, if they want to waste their time, just come to it. They're really wasting their time here. How you doing, Benny? Good to see you, man. Good to see you, sir. So yeah, we would sit back and play cards in the house, especially in the winter. And when the winter, and you know, in the winter time, we would get driven from the apartment to the club. And once we got to the club, when the snow was like up here, you did not want to go out. And I, being from California, I sure didn't want to go out, so we would stay in and tell stories. And this guy told me a story. I heard this secondhand, so I can't say it's true. But it's, you know, it's been a story that I've kept in the back of my mind since I heard it. It was from the bass player and the cover band that I played in Nagoya. When I say cover band, well, we would bring in a look-alike person. So we had this girl named RG Fine, and RG played. She would put on a wig. She would sing like Whitney Houston, and then we started bringing in real known impersonators like Michael Jackson. This guy named Scorpio. If any of you guys are familiar with him, I got quite a few stories about him. And Elvis and stuff like that. And we played the music. It wasn't canned music. There was actually a live band, and we had to play Elvis. Da 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 da. We had to do all. And that's when I would play guitar sometimes. Marilyn Monroe stuff, and really just a really wide variety of guys. And the bass player was from Atlanta, I think. So this story comes out of Atlanta. And he talked about, at that time, I was playing a Fender, a Telecaster. It was an ST, so it wasn't a high end. It was the first one that I had. I bought it at a local shop in Yokohama. But he was looking at the guitar and he was talking about Les Pauls. And I said, yeah, I love Les Pauls. One of these days I'll get one. Boy, did I. But he said he heard about this Les Paul that had been floating around in pawn shops in Atlanta, in Georgia. It was not just any guitar, but one with faded binding and a worn out fretboard. And it had been played a lot. Whoever owned that thing, they wore it out. And so whenever it showed up in a pawn shop, people would know, guitarists would know it, they'd recognize it, he said. And the story goes that this guitar has a way of binding itself to people, not by nostalgia or love, but really something evil. This guitar is known to have just a bad vibe to it. An evil kind of, the way he described it was, if you were in a room full of guitars, this one would stand out, but just from the fact that it gave out this vibe, and it was not a good one. Now, apparently, this guitar was owned by a blues guitarist who played at that time in the Atlanta area back in the 60s. And he was a blues guitarist, and he had a really good reputation and a reputation of having a mean streak. The guy told me. The bassist told me this was just a mean guy. He was a contemporary of this bass guitar player's father. And his father wouldn't mess with him, he said. It's just one of those guys who will cut you. You could be sitting at the bar having a drink, and the next thing you know, he's bashing a bottle over your head. It's one of those kind of guys. But he was really a really good group blues player, and he played a Black Les Paul. Now, Tommy, we'll just call him Tommy. I can't remember the guy's name. He told me. We'll say Tommy played like he was on fire, and he poured every ounce of himself into the instrument. The guy said. He said this guy was just like Hendrix on steroids when he played. And as it turns out, this guitar and Tommy had one last performance together. Apparently, again, that wasn't his real name, but we'll just call him Tommy. Tommy playing, and he just started playing some really fanatic notes and just way out stuff. And, and just really was getting into a sound that I guess was a little bit too advanced. It's sort of like that scene in Back to the Future 1 where Marty starts playing, some Hendrix like this, and everybody's like, "What the hell is that?" So apparently, with Tommy one night, this fatal night, was really just going off like that, to the point where people started to get up and walk out of the club. They weren't digging it at all, and the manager tried to go up to the stage to get Tommy to stop playing, but according to the bass player's father, the story he heard is that the manager looked Tommy in the eyes, and his eyes were just completely just the whites of his eyes. He was just so he thought he was completely coked out or on drugs or something. And he finished the set, and he kind of wobbled a little bit, put the guitar on its stand, took a few steps, and collapsed dead. Collapsed dead right there on the spot. And the funny thing is that he had put the guitar on the stand, and he was taking a few steps, and I guess he would have let go, but he kind of collapsed, and he was still laying there on the floor, still holding the guitar, and they had pry it out of his hands. He had like a death grip on it. And since then, the guitar traded around the late 60s, early 70s, pawn shops, going into late 70s, early 80s. And people would buy it, they play it for a little bit, and then they return it. And it was getting to be a little bit kind of a joke. Nobody kept it for very long. People said that if it was in the same room with them, they would lose sleep. They had strange dreams. There was a shadow in the room, and one guy, the story that he said, this one guy said that there was a shadow in the room with him. So I was like, what does he mean? A shadow like a ghost, or was it the guitar player? He said, yeah, it was like the ghost of the guitar player, the guy who died, Tommy, or a shadow or something. But people just didn't want to keep this guitar for very long. And I said, what happened to the guitar? And he said that eventually somebody bought it. Another kind of down on his luck went into a pawn shop, and he said, what do you got for $300? And the guy said, I've got this Black Les Paul and around. I'm gonna let you know, it's got some issues. And the guy said, well, is the pickup's messed up or something? He said, no, he says it plays fine, But, it just, people play a little bit and they bring it back. So, if you want to bring it back, I'll take it back. I'm going to charge you, an extra $50 off, where you buy it for to bring it back. But, you can bring it back. And the guy said, cool. Apparently, according to the bass player, he took it home and his girlfriend found him the next day in his apartment, slumped on the floor, clutching the guitar. And so that's the story that the bass player told me about the supposed, uh, let's just say, cursed guitar that was owned by a blues player in Atlanta. And I didn't think it would be appropriate not to finish tonight out without telling a scary story. I always like to tell them when I can. Scott Bogfoot says, "Thank God none of my guitars are possessed." I had some repossessed, but not possessed. Cue the Twilight Zone music. Yeah, great show, Mike. Take care, everybody. Good to see Dave, Benny, Scott. It's good to see you, Ben. Thanks so much for showing up. Yeah, that's a story he told me. Like I said, secondhand story. And I'm trying to remember it as best as I can, but basically, yeah, you know, the guy who bought it, he kind of bought it. He bought it after he bought it. So there's that. It is officially Halloween, guys, so I'll say a happy Halloween to each and every one of you. I want to thank all of you guys, including the bots, for keeping me entertained. Some of them made me laugh tonight, so thank you, bots. Thank you for the regular crew for showing up and supporting me with this live stream. Thanks, guys. I appreciate each day for showing up. My nephew Alex for showing up. That's pretty cool. A lot of the regulars showing up here. You know, Ben, Mr. Watson. Excuse me, guys. Better stop while I'm ahead. Thank you guys for showing up. I will see you. If you haven't checked it out, I did put up the video on Monday of me doing the aging on the pick guard and on the bracket. Yes, I know the bracket is on the outside, not on the inside, but I want to show, you know, the coloration between the two, and it had to go to Fern anyway, so I knew he would fix it. So I am aware of that, but I do want to show how that bracket went from that shiny gold to match that pick guard, and that seemed the best way to show it off on the guitar. But check that video all the way through to the end. You'll see what I'm talking about. And again, if you like that, if you like this, and you like what you're hearing, you want to hear more, please subscribe to this channel, not you bots. Please subscribe to this channel. I would love to have you join into the conversation that we have here twice a week in these live streams. I do enjoy it so much. Hope you enjoyed tonight's subject, the horror of high guitar prices, the Halloween Eve live stream. Well, it's Halloween now, so happy. You know what? I'm gonna take a drink here. It's kind of dry in here. I've got the heater on. And my tongue is ceasing to work. So happy Halloween. There it is. To you guys. Benny, thank you so much. You guys take care. I will see you coming up in the live stream on Sunday. Have a good one. Don't eat too much candy. Look out for the razor blades in the apples. Don't get E. coli in your stocking. Oh, no, I'm sorry. That's the wrong holiday. All right, guys. See ya. Bye.